Title: The Millionaire Farmer Arrives to Buy a Horse, but Fate Leads Him to a Family of 6. Chapter 1: The Mysterious Beginning. From the very first moment, an eerie silence hung over the old farmhouse, broken only by the faint rustle of leaves stirred by an unseen breeze. Strange shadows flickered across the cracked walls, as if the house itself held secrets desperate to be uncovered. Every creak of the floorboards echoed like a whispered warning, while outside, the distant howl of a lone wolf sent chills down the spine. Something was undeniably wrong. A hidden truth lurking just beneath the surface, waiting to unravel. The air grew thick with anticipation as unexplained lights danced in the darkness, and the townsfolk's hushed rumors spoke of an ancient curse that no one dared to challenge. Each strange occurrence piled upon the last, weaving a tangled web of mystery that pulled the reader deeper into the story, craving to know what sinister forces were at play. Hey, before we continue with this incredible story, I need to give you an important alert. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube removed their subscriptions without warning. Just take a quick look at the red button down below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any exclusive content coming your way. And since you're here, drop that powerful like that helps me so much with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, what city are you watching from? I love meeting every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. If you like stories about farmers, about everyday life on the farm, and want to know what really happens in the daily lives of the biggest farmers in the world, the hidden stories of the richest owners, and the secrets of the farm girls that the media doesn't reveal, check out our virtual book with the most famous and secret stories from the farm. Click on the first link in the video comments and get yours now. Chapter 2: The Unveiling of Darkness. As the night deepened, the strange lights flickered more violently. A cold sweat broke out on Thomas's brow. The millionaire farmer had come to buy a horse, but the air felt heavy with secrets and unspoken words. He walked through the creaking halls, his heart thudding with each step. Goosebumps crawled up his arms. But then a sudden noise shattered the silence. A loud crash from the old barn. Adrenaline coursed through him. He rushed outside, the chill nipping at his skin. His mind raced with the thoughts of what could be lurking in the shadows. Was it just the wind, or something darker? As he neared the barn, the moonlight illuminated the door, swinging precariously on its hinges. He hesitated for a moment. Should he enter? But curiosity and an unshakable instinct pushed him forward. Inside, the air was thick with dust, and the smell of hay clung to him like a shroud. His breath came quick and shallow, every muscle tensed. Then, out of the darkness, he saw it, a figure hunched over, shrouded in shadows. It was a woman, her hair ragged, her face hidden. "Help me," she croaked, her voice hoarse, as if she hadn't spoken in ages. Thomas's heart ached at the sound, but suspicion gnawed at him. "Who are you?" he asked, wary, yet drawn in by her plea. I'm Ivy," she whispered, and as she stepped into the light, her eyes burned with desperation. "You can't trust them. They'll come for you." "Who will?" he pressed, a growing unease gnawing in his stomach. Suddenly, a distant rumble disrupted their conversation. The earth shook beneath their feet. Ivy's eyes widened in horror. "They're here!" Before Thomas could react, the barn door burst open. A group of townsfolk rushed in, their faces twisted in anger. "You don't belong here!" one man shouted, brandishing a pitchfork. "Get out before." It's too late! Fear surged through Thomas, his instincts screaming at him to flee. This wasn't just a simple horse purchase. He was caught in something bigger, something far more sinister. "What's happening?" he cried. Ivy reached for his hand, her grip unyielding. "You need to listen. The farmers, they're hiding things, dark things." A flash of lightning illuminated the room, and in that brief moment, Thomas recognized one of the townsfolk, Daniel, a familiar face from his days in the community. But there was no warmth in his eyes, only a coldness that chilled Thomas to his core. "Do you really think this city boy understands?" Daniel scoffed. "You don't. Know what these fields have seen. Leave while you still can, Thomas." But it was too late. The air thickened with tension. The townsfolk closed in, their intentions unclear. Thomas felt the weight of their judgment pressing down on him. He was an outsider. Ivy's fingers dug into his wrist. "You need to decide," she said urgently. "Stand with them or with me. Choose now." In that moment, everything shifted. His life, his ambitions, his very identity teetered on the precipice of knowledge he had not sought. A million questions crashed in his mind, each louder than the last. Who was Ivy? What secrets did the townsfolk hide? The answer hung in the air, tantalizingly close, yet just out of reach. Chapter 3: The Unfolding Truth. Thomas felt Ivy's grip tighten around his wrist. The chaos swirled around him like a storm, townsfolk closing in, their faces masks of anger and fear. "Choose now," she urged, and his chest tightened with panic. But then, a piercing scream shattered the air. It didn't come from Ivy, but from outside. A high, desperate wail that echoed into the night. The townsfolk froze, confusion flickering in their eyes. Thomas turned to Ivy, her face pale and eyes wide. What was that? Before she could respond, the barn door flew open, slamming against the wall. A boy dashed in, his clothes torn and dirty, chest heaving. "Help! It's Josie!" he gasped, panic radiating off him. She's hurt!" Thomas's heart raced. Josie? He knew her, a child from the nearby farmhouse who often played in the fields. "Where is she?" he demanded, his instincts kicking in. The boy pointed frantically back into the woods, his face stricken with terror. "In the creek! Something attacked her!" The townsfolk exchanged alarmed glances. "We need to go," one of them muttered. And without waiting for a signal, they rushed out of the barn, leaving Thomas and Ivy behind. "Let's go," Ivy whispered, her face a mask of determination, but her eyes revealed fear. They sprinted after the townsfolk, the moonlight flickering in and out of view as they plunged into the dense trees. The boy led the way, his small frame trembling. Thomas felt Ivy's fingers slip into his palm, anchoring him amidst the chaos. "We can't let them get to her first," she breathed. Soon, they reached the creek. The water glimmered under the moonlight, but the tranquil scene was shattered by a low, animalistic growl that echoed from the darkness. "Stay back," one of the townsfolk shouted as they pushed forward, fear palpable in the air. Then, from behind a cluster of trees, a shape emerged. It wasn't a wolf, but something far worse, an enormous figure with twisted limbs and glowing eyes. It growled again, and all Thomas could do was stand frozen. "Josie!" the boy shouted, stumbling toward the creature. A scream erupted from behind the shadows, and suddenly a small figure stumbled out. Josie, her clothes torn, struggled to keep herself upright, blood streaming from a deep gash on her arm. "Get away from her!" Thomas yelled, instinct taking over, his heart racing. But before he could reach out, Ivy stepped in front of him. "Stop!" she cried, her voice shaking. The creature paused, sensing her presence. "Ivy," it rumbled, and the sound struck Thomas like a punch to the gut. "Do you know it?" he stammered, dread creeping into his veins. "It's not what you think," Ivy whispered. And in that moment, the air shifted. The ground beneath them felt unstable. Her eyes, once filled with fear, now held a depth of something darker. "What do you mean?" Thomas felt the panic rise in his throat. But as Ivy turned her gaze on the creature, a terrible realization washed over him. The boy's terrified pleas faded into an eerie silence. "You," Ivy breathed, stepping closer to the creature, her eyes wide. "I thought they got you." A chill swept through the crowd. The townsfolk gasped, their faces pale with shock. The creature's form began to shift, twisting and folding, the lines between human and beast blurring. Suddenly, as if triggering a final transformation, the creature let out a deafening roar, shaking the trees around them. Josie screamed, and Thomas felt a tightness in his chest. This was no mere monster. It was something they all knew. Something that had been hidden in the shadows. "Everything you thought you knew is a lie," Ivy shouted, her voice echoing in the darkness. "The curse runs deeper than you can imagine." Thomas's heart raced. Secrets? Lies? The weight of truth pressed down like a heavy stone. "What have you done?" he whispered, eyes darting from Ivy to the creature. But before she could answer, the creature lunged and darkness consumed the night. Thoughts spiraled in confusion. What was happening? Who was Ivy really? The truth loomed like a shadow, and for Thomas, all he could see was the whispering chaos unraveling before him. Chapter 4: The Shattering Revelation. The creature lunged, its growl reverberating like thunder. Time seemed to slow for Thomas. Every instinct screamed for him to run, to protect Josie. But he was frozen, heart pounding in his ears. Ivy stood before the beast, defiant yet terrified, her eyes wide with something unspoken. "Stay back," Thomas shouted again, hands trembling, almost spilling his fear into the night air. The townsfolk froze, uncertainty filling the space. What could possibly unfold? And then it happened. The ground shook with the force of a bomb. A blinding flash lit up the scene, seeming to split the earth itself. Suddenly, the trees around the creek splintered apart, the air thick with an ominous energy. Thomas felt a rush, as if the earth was alive, as if everything he knew was about to shift. The creature paused, confusion etched onto its monstrous face. And in that moment, Ivy spoke words that sliced through the chaos. "You have to remember, Lucien," she cried, her voice rising above the storm. "You can't let them keep you like this." Thomas's breath caught. "Lucien?" He looked from Ivy to the creature, disbelief washing over him. "What do you mean, Ivy?" His voice trembled. And then, as if responding to her call, the creature convulsed violently. With a roar that shook the very air around them, it transformed before their eyes. Muscle and fur reshaped into human form, revealing a familiar face, one that sent chills down Thomas's spine. Lucien, Daniel's brother, long missing, presumed dead. Shock rippled through the crowd. Murmurs exploded like firecrackers. "No way! Is that him?" someone gasped. "How is this possible?" Another voice trembled with fear. Lucien stood there, panting heavily, his gaze filled with panic. "Ivy, untrapped! They've kept me here, used me." His voice shook, raw with emotion. "She's been protecting you," Ivy cried, stepping towards him, her hands reaching out. "You have to fight it, Lucien. We can end this." Suddenly, the realization hit Thomas like a punch. "You knew all along," he shouted at Ivy, hurt blooming inside him. "You knew he was alive. Why didn't you tell anyone?" The panic in Ivy's eyes thickened. "I did it to protect you. I thought if they found out, they'd hurt you too. It's too dangerous." "Dangerous?" Thomas's heart felt like it might burst. "This isn't about me. It's about him." Then there was another noise, a chorus of growls as the shadows shifted. A second creature emerged from the woods, its eyes glowing menacingly. This one was different, larger, an echo of Lucien's twisted form. "I didn't want this," Lucien's voice trembled. "I didn't want any of this." With a chilling howl, the new creature charged. The townsfolk scattered in panic, screams slicing through the air. Thomas felt Ivy's grip on his arm. "We have to save him. We can't let them take him again." But then, fear tightened around him. "Why should we trust you?" he screamed, looking at Ivy, the pain of betrayal mixing with his rising dread. "Because," Ivy's voice cracked, "because I love him, and you must choose." Now, Thomas fought to process everything, the fear, the anguish, the love that hung like an anchor in the storm of chaos. Relationships were fracturing around him, and he stood at a precipice where every decision had a weight, a consequence. What did it all mean? Who could be trusted? He felt the earth shake beneath him and wondered if this was just the beginning of something far worse. In that moment, he knew nothing would ever be the same again, and time was running out. Where would he stand when the dust settled? Chapter 5, The Unraveling. The creature's roar echoed through the trees, shaking Thomas to his core. He saw Ivy's desperation, felt Lucien's pain, and the tension in the air crackled like a live wire. Fear gripped him as he stared at the massive figure inching closer, every heartbeat pounding in his ears. He felt Ivy's hand slacken on his arm, terror making her pale face even whiter. "Get back, Lucien!" Ivy shouted, her voice piercing through the chaos. But he didn't move. His eyes were locked on the second creature. Dread flooded his features, and something broke inside Thomas. What if it's too late? He wondered. But in the chaos of emotions swirling around him, he noticed something strange about Lucian. His eyes flickered with recognition, confusion, but something darker lurked. Beneath, the transition from beast to man might not be complete. "Lucian!" Thomas cried, stepping forward, wanting to bridge the distance, wanting to pull him from the brink. "I can't! I won't let them take me!" Lucian roared, tears mingling with his bloodied skin. His voice split the air, resonating with anger and sorrow. "I've been losing myself." But then the ground started to tremble again. It wasn't just from the creature's growl. It was something deeper. The earth beneath them seemed alive, pulsating with a hidden power. "What's happening?" Thomas gasped, clutching Ivy's arm, the connection anchoring him against the storm of emotions swelling around them. In an instant, a blinding flash illuminated the forest, freezing them all in place. Shadows shifted, and when the light faded, a figure stood behind Lucian. It was another woman, radiant yet unsettling. Her presence exuded an energy that made the very air hum. "Enough!" she commanded, her voice rich and calming, undercutting the chaos. She stepped forward, her eyes piercing. "You've meddled enough with what you don't understand, Ivy." Thomas's heart raced. Who was this woman? Confusion mixed with fear and curiosity. "Madeline," Ivy whispered, the word barely escaping her lips. Fear washed over her features, and suddenly the warmth in Ivy's expression faded. "Why are you here?" Ivy's voice trembled, the strength she once held, crumbling like dry leaves in autumn. The townsfolk stood breathless, eyes darting between the three. "Because," Madeline replied, her tone both reprimanding and sorrowful, "you refused to listen. You thought you could save him." The creatures around them seemed to shrink back, as if even they understood her authority. Lucian was never just lost. He was needed here, to fulfill a purpose. "What purpose?" Thomas blurted out, unable to contain his frustration. A knot twisted in his stomach as he wondered if the truth would shatter everything he believed. Madeline's gaze shifted toward him. "Everything you know about this place is built on a lie. Families who farm here carry burdens passed down through generations, bloodlines tied to the shadows." Time stopped for a heartbeat. Thomas looked at Ivy, her face a mix of disbelief and sorrow. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying," Madeline continued, "that Lucian has the power to change it all, and Ivy has kept him hidden, terrified of what he might become. But the truth is, she's part of that darkness too." Thomas reeled back, mouth agape. "What?" The revelation electrified the air, sending a jolt of shock that ruptured through the crowd. Ivy's eyes widened, betrayal swirling. "No, that's not true!" Her voice choked as she turned to Lucian, desperation in her plea. "You can't believe her." But the moment stretched on, weighing heavy like a storm cloud. Lucian's eyes shifted again, uncertainty clouding his demeanor. "Ivy, is it true?" A flicker of fear passed over Ivy's face. "I did it to protect you." "You've always known," he murmured, the truth like a knife slicing through them. The townsfolk exchanged whispered glances, the tension palpable. Was she a villain? Or a protector? Suddenly, before Thomas could grasp the magnitude of it all, the ground split open, black tendrils snaking out, reaching for Lucian and Ivy. "Run!" Madeline shouted, urgency slicing through the air. But footsteps grew chaotic, panic hijacking the night as fear erupted anew. It was a mad rush. Thomas felt. Ivy slipped through his fingers, her passionate screams fading as he turned to see the darkness encroaching. And then he saw it. The final twist in the night. The price of truth revealed. "Thomas!" Ivy screamed, shimmering fear like a beacon. The ground trembled beneath him, but he couldn't move. The question hung in the air like a noose. Who was good? Who was bad? Who could he trust? His chest tightened. The night was unraveling, and he stood on the edge of something massive. The darkness surged forward, and within it, the answers came close. What was the cost of the truth, and would any of them make it out alive? Chapter 6. The Crumbling Mask. The ground trembled beneath them, darkness creeping closer, a cold grip tightening around Thomas's chest. He felt Ivy slip from his grasp. Her cries echoed in his head, each one a knife twisting deeper into his gut. Panic surged through the townsfolk, but he stood frozen, his heart thundering as shadows swirled around Lucien and Ivy. Ivy's face paled, and her eyes darted back to Lucien, desperation etched in every feature. "Don't let it take you!" she shouted, voice breaking, but he could see her fear turning into something else, something darker flickering in her eyes. Then, just as the darkness seemed poised to swallow them, the winds changed. A piercing scream echoed through the trees, but it wasn't the scream of a terrified child or a creature. It was human, the haunting voice cutting through the chaos like a lightning bolt. "Stop!" a voice rang out, sharp as glass. Everyone turned. There she stood, a woman emerging from the shadows. At first, Thomas didn't recognize her, but then it hit him. It was Clara, the girl he had shared childhood days with, the one he thought had vanished years ago. Her face was pale, but fierce. As she stepped forward, eyes blazing with an intensity that seemed to quiet the crowd. "You don't understand," she yelled, drawing their attention. "This isn't just about Lucien or Ivy. It's about all of us." Gasps rippled through the townsfolk. Thomas's heart raced. "Clara, what are you doing here?" Unfazed, Clara pressed on, each word loaded with urgency. "The curse. It goes deeper than the family lines. It's tied to blood and sacrifice, to everything we've lost." "What do you mean?" Thomas whispered, confusion and fear colliding. Suddenly, the ground heaved, and something shifted in the shadows, bringing forth a familiar scent, a mix of wet earth and decay. His heart sank. "Clara, focus," he urged, but her eyes had locked onto Ivy, a glow of recognition flashing across her features. "Ivy," Clara breathed, her voice trembling, "you don't have to hide it anymore. You're part of the ritual." Ivy's expression twisted, a mix of anger and despair. "What do you know about me?" she spat, stepping back, a wall of defensiveness rising around her. "More than you think. The bond we share, it's tied to the darkness your family unleashed. It isn't just Lucien, it's all of us." Clara's voice rang out, raw and desperate. That's when it hit Thomas, a wave crashing over him. No, it can't be. The pieces began to fall, and he saw the shadows lurking behind Ivy's eyes, the whispers she had concealed, the truths unspoken. "Ivy," his voice cracked, "are you part of it?" "I had no choice," she cried, tears spilling over. "I was trying to save him, save us. The sacrifice, it must be completed. Otherwise the cycle continues." Clara looked shaken. her vulnerability cutting through Thomas's panic. "We have to break it before it's too late." And just then, the earth split open, a dark chasm yawning before them. The shadows morphed into a vortex, pulling at them like a living thing. The townsfolk screamed, some backing away, while others were rooted in place, mesmerized by the terror unfolding. Lucian, half transformed, stood at the edge of the divide, caught between two worlds. His eyes locked onto Ivy, confusion swirling within him. "You knew all along." The darkness howled, a force that seemed to resonate with their fears, twisting reality into blurred lines. "Thomas!" Ivy screamed, reaching for him, but the pull from the chasm was overwhelming. "You must decide, fight with us or let it consume everything." Just as he opened his mouth to respond, Clara lunged forward, her hand reaching for Thomas. "Don't choose her. I was lost, and I came back for you." Time froze. The world shifted. Ivy's desperation collided with Clara's fierce resolve, and in that moment, Thomas felt everything unraveling around him, like threads of a fraying tapestry. "Choose!" The shadows surged, and he could feel the darkness wrapping around him, whispering secrets he'd never wanted to know. "Don't let it take you!" His heart pounded. Confusion clouded his thoughts. What did it all mean? In that dizzying moment, everything hung in the balance, and the stakes were higher than he could ever have imagined. "Who will he save?" someone whispered, but the question faded amidst the chaos. Thomas's heart raced, caught between two destinies, and he felt the darkness close in. And the choice he made would change everything. Chapter 7. The Shattering. Thomas felt the weight of the night pressing down, the air thick with fear and uncertainty. Everything swirled around him. Ivy reaching, Clara pleading, Lucienne caught in between. He had to make a choice, but before he could decide, it happened. A low rumble pulsed beneath their feet. Everyone fell silent, eyes drawn to the darkness that seemed to writhe and pulse, a sinister entity alive beneath the ground. The wind transformed into a shrill howl, as if warning them of the impending doom. "No! Not like this!" Ivy screamed, her voice raw with torment. The shadows roared, plumes of darkness erupting like geysers from the soil. Thomas grabbed her arm, desperation coursing through him. But then a blinding flash consumed the scene. For a split second, the world turned white. He shielded his eyes, heart racing. When the light faded, everything felt different. Stunned silence enveloped them. Thomas squinted into the darkness. But it wasn't just the darkness swirling. Something stepped out of it. A woman emerged, her hair flowing like tendrils of smoke. Her eyes gleamed with an otherworldly light. She was beautiful, yet unsettling, a contradiction in every way. The townsfolk gasped, stepping back in unison. "Who are you?" Thomas croaked, his voice barely above a whisper. "I am the echo of this place," she said, her voice melodic but chilling. "I carry the essence of the land and all its secrets." "What secrets?" Lucian asked, his voice trembling. The echo smiled, but it was a grim kind of smile. "Your burdens, your pasts, all woven into this soil. Ivy, your fate is not what you think. You are tied to the cycles, but so is Clara. And so is Thomas. Thomas's heart raced. What do you mean? Long ago your families made a pact, she continued, her voice like a haunting melody. A promise entwined with blood and sacrifice. Clara, you are tied to the very darkness that consumes Lucien, feeding off the lives of generations. Ivy, your power was awakened to oppose it, but it's also the reason for your connection with Thomas. The realization hit him hard, like a punch to the chest. Clara gasped, eyes wide. No, that can't be true. Everything you thought you knew is a lie, the echo repeated. The curse runs through your veins, binding you all to an ancient truth. You are not separate. You are fragments of a whole. A sudden chill swept through Thomas. His breath hitched in his throat. What are you saying? He managed to force out, feeling the weight of each word. You are the sacrifice and the salvation, she whispered. And the choice you make will echo through eternity. Before Thomas could react, the earth trembled violently, and the darkness surged like a tidal wave. The townsfolk screamed, but that sound was swallowed in the chaos. Ivy's grip tightened as she stepped closer to him, panic flashing in her eyes. Thomas, don't listen. It's playing games, she urged, desperation clear in her voice. But as he locked eyes with the echo, something shifted within him. Memories flickered in and out, faces of ancestors he had never known screaming for release, their pain resonating deep within his soul. Were they right? Were they all bound by this cursed history? No, Clara cried, anguish rising in her voice. You can't believe her. She twists the truth. Don't let her drown you in despair. Enough, the echo commanded, her voice crashing down like thunder. In that moment, something shattered in Thomas. He felt a rush of energy course through him, warm and cold all at once, imploding within his chest. It was as if the past had come alive, and for the briefest second he could see it. Generation exploded from Thomas, pushing the darkness back. But what did that mean? In that split second, he realized the terrible truth. He was the key to either their salvation or their doom. And he had to choose. But would he ever really know what he was choosing? The shadows lurked, waiting to consume them all. A storm swirled deep inside Thomas, and outside, the silent cries of the forgotten echoed in the night. Would he embrace this twisted legacy or fight against it? The choice loomed, and a question hung in the charged air. Could he trust anyone, even himself? Chapter 8, The Rumble of Truth. The shadows writhed around them, and Thomas felt the storm inside him grow. Fear and urgency collided. The echo's words echoed, lingering heavy in the air. The choice you make will echo through eternity. What did that mean? Panic gripped him. Thomas, Ivy shouted, her voice a lifeline in the chaos. You can't let the darkness take you. Her eyes shimmered with unshed tears, desperate for him to understand. But just as he began to process, the ground roared again. With a violent shudder, the earth split wider, swallowing patches of grass and dirt. The townsfolk staggered, some falling to the ground. A deep rumble came from below, like the wrath of a sleeping giant awakening. Then it happened. A blinding light erupted from the chasm, twisting and swirling. Thomas shielded his eyes, heart racing as he fought to see through the brightness. When the light dimmed, Thomas gasped. In the center of the chasm stood a figure, A woman with glowing skin, her presence ethereal. It was Clara, but she looked different. Her eyes glinted with a light that was both familiar and foreign. "Clara?" he murmured, doubt gripping him. "It's me," she said, voice resonating. "But more than you've ever known." Panic gripped Ivy. "No, this isn't right," she shouted, fear washing over her. "Get back!" Clara stepped forward, her gaze piercing. "You don't understand, Ivy. This power, it flows through us all. The truth binds us, but I'm the only one who can break the cycle." "What do you mean?" Thomas faltered, the weight of her words pressing down. "I was chosen. All this time, the darkness wanted me to bring you here," Clara continued, voice rising with passion. "But I've embraced it. I can become the foundation for a new beginning, if you let me." Ivy's expression shifted, anger and dread battling across her features. "You can't. That's not how this works. You'll only unleash more chaos." But Clara just smiled, a knowing glint in her eyes. "Chaos is the only way to shake us free. I'll do what needs to be done, and I'll make my sacrifices." The ground trembled again, threatening to collapse around them. Thomas's heart raced. He felt the pull of the chasm, a dark lure. "Clara, you don't have to do this," he yelled, desperation pouring from him. But she only shook her head, stepping closer to the edge. "I have to free us. It's the only way to end the cycle and stop this nightmare." As she spoke, a sudden roar erupted from the depths. The shadows surged, twisting violently. The townsfolk screamed, echoing their dread. "Thomas!" Ivy cried, reaching for him, but he was locked into Clara's fierce gaze. The air around them thickened. The tension was palpable, heavy like iron in the atmosphere. Then everything erupted. A surge of energy exploded from Clara, gusting forward like a tidal wave. Darkness and light collided, swirling violently as the power rippled out. And then, in an instant, the world shattered. Clara's form flickered, her face distorting. Gasps filled the air as the glow faded, revealing a truth so devastating it knocked the breath from Thomas's lungs. "No," he whispered, watching in horror. Clara collapsed, her energy crackling and flaring, revealing her true form. She wasn't just a girl. She was the curse, the very darkness they had feared. "What the hell is happening?" Ivy gasped, eyes wide with shock. Clara's laugh echoed eerily, summer thunder rumbling through the air. "I am what you seek to fight. I was always here waiting." Betrayal surged through Thomas, a cold blade slicing his heart. Everything felt upside down. All the truths he thought he had crumbled into dust. "What do we do?" he cried, practically trembling. But Clara's glow pulsed again, sending ripples through the crowd. Shadows tore through the trees, clawing toward him, toward Ivy, shifting everything they thought they knew. The air was electric, charged with fear, confusion, and regret. "Fight!" Ivy shouted, but Thomas felt the world tilting. Everything was breaking apart, shards of the past, scattering in the chaos. Could they trust anyone? Could they ever escape the darkness? As Clara laughed, the shadows clawed closer, and Thomas knew the ground beneath them was not just a chasm, it was the abyss. What would become of them? He could only wait for the answer to come crashing down, just like the rest of their world. Chapter 9: The Shifting Tides. The shadows danced around them, wild and chaotic. Clara's laughter echoed, each laugh twisting into a sinister melody. Thomas felt the ground buck beneath him, a living entity hungry for their fears. Ivy's tears blurred her face, and in that moment, the world felt lost. Clara was something beyond comprehension. She wasn't just a friend. She had become an embodiment of darkness, a weight pressing down on Thomas's heart. "What do you want?" he shouted, voice cracking under the strain. Clara just smiled, that eerie, knowing grin. "I want to free us all, Thomas." The air turned cold. A sharp bite, racking around their throats. Sobs mingled with murmurs of confusion. The townsfolk had lost all control. They moved back, stumbling, terror lighting their eyes. "Stop!" Ivy yelled, her voice piercing through the chaos. But the shadows twisted, reaching out like skeletal hands, merging with Clara's glow. The darkness grew thicker, hungry and thick. "Release me!" Clara cried, out desperation coating her voice. Suddenly, as if the world obeyed her command, the shadows surged forward. An overwhelming force crashed against Thomas, slamming him to the ground. His heart raced. A cold sweat dripped down his brow. The sky darkened, and a rumble shook the air. And just then, something broke. A roar like thunder echoed overhead. A shape emerged above them, colossal and spectral. Thomas's breath caught. It was a figure, cloaked in shadow, towering over everything. "Who or what are you?" he managed, trembling. The figure's form shifted, revealing itself momentarily. A woman, ethereal, but with a ferocity that stole breath. "I am the ancestor," she boomed. Her voice swirling around like a storm, the truth called me forth. The townsfolk gasped, eyes wide. This was a powerful energy, more than they could comprehend. Even Clara appeared shaken, fear flickering in her eyes. "What truth?" Thomas whispered, heart pounding. The ancestor pointed a long, shadowy finger at Clara. "She has awakened the darkness within. You all have fallen prey to it, but there is a choice to make." "What choice?" Ivy spat, her voice quavering. "To destroy the curse." The ancestor's voice resonated, an echo of pain from lifetimes past. "Or to perpetuate it." Suddenly, Thomas felt a rush of memories flood his mind, visceral flashes of nightmares long buried. Images of families torn apart, laughter turned to screams. A tightness gripped his chest. "No," he choked out. "We can stop this." "Yes," the ancestor replied, eyes burning with intensity. "But the cost is high, and not one you may be prepared to pay." Before he could digest her words, Clara stepped forward defiantly, lifting her chin. "I'll pay whatever it takes. This ends tonight." "Clara, don't!" Ivy cried, reaching out as if to pull her back. But Clara didn't waver. A blinding flash erupted from Clara, and for a moment, Thomas saw her true form, a being made of light, tangled with shadows, an image of both hope and despair. The ancestor turned, eyes wide with recognition. You're the key." "What do you mean?" Thomas shouted, feeling the ground tipping precariously around him. The ancestor's voice softened. A choice must be made. A sacrifice from the light is required to seal the shadows. You can't save everyone. For a split second, the chaos quieted. All eyes turned, focused on Clara. "No! You can't take her!" Thomas screamed, heart clenching. Ivy sobbed beside him, panic in her gaze. But Clara was already stepping closer. "I have to, Thomas! I can end this!" "Stop! Don't!" The words screamed from Thomas's throat, but it was too late. With a rush that swept them all off their feet, Clara plunged herself into the swirling darkness. A wail erupted, raw and haunting, a scream that felt like the breaking of the world. Thomas's heart dropped, everything dissolving into chaos. The darkness raged, a ferocious storm unleashing its terrifying might. The ancestor's eyes flashed, and then silence. Everything froze. "Clara!" Thomas yelled, desperation clawing at his chest. But as the darkness shifted, something began to change. The ground trembled again. The shadows swirled, but now with a flickering light. In that light, a new figure emerged, a glowing silhouette, one that looked eerily familiar. "Who is that?" Ivy whispered, voice shaking. And as light filled the darkness, the true twist came crashing in. It wasn't just Clara. It was all of them, transformed. The shadows of their past unraveling in a spectacular burst of revelations. As the dust settled, Thomas felt an uneasy question linger. What had they just unleashed? As the darkness started to pull back, a strange brilliance filled the air. Thomas felt a jolt of energy surge through him. Clara's final act had sent shockwaves through the land, illuminating the cursed shadows that had held them captive for so long. "It's changing!" Ivy gasped, her eyes wide as she watched the shadows dissipate, chased away by Clara's light. Thomas could feel the weight lifting, a tightness in his chest, loosening as hope flickered back to life. But the figure shimmering in the glow was not just Clara. It was the essence of all of them. His memories, Ivy's fears, Lucian's rage, all wrapped in this surreal moment. "What did she do?" he whispered, almost afraid to breathe. The ancestor's presence loomed over them, eyes piercing and intense. "She has broken the cycle, but she paid the price." "No! Clara!" Thomas shouted, fear clawing at him again. "We can't leave her like this." Ivy steadied him, her grip firm and resolute. "We have to trust this new beginning. She's freed us, Thomas." But as the dust settled, Clara's essence began to fade. "Clara!" he shouted again, desperation bleeding into his voice. The shadows retreated fully, and the moonlight poured through the trees, revealing the faces of the townsfolk, wide-eyed and shocked. Panic buzzed in the air, and murmurs began to weave through the crowd. "Did you see that? Is it over? What just happened?" Lucian staggered forward, confusion etched on his features. "Clara, she was our chance." Tears streamed down Ivy's face as she turned to Thomas, the fight leaving her. "We'll carry her memory with us. We can rebuild. The curse is broken." But uncertainty loomed heavy. What if it comes back? Lucian's voice trembled with fear. "Not if we stand together," Thomas declared, wiping his eyes. "If we commit to changing the way things have been, what our families have done." Slowly, a nod spread through the crowd, heads lifting with newfound determination. The weight of years of darkness was starting to lift. As they stood there, surrounded by faces filled with hope and uncertainty, Thomas understood that their journey didn't end with Clara's sacrifice. They were at the beginning of something powerful. "I promise we will remember her," he declared, glancing at the now faint glow where Clara had been, a warmth spreading in his heart. "Let's honor her by creating a future that is free from shadows." A ripple of agreement surged through the crowd as hands joined, fears shifting toward unity. They could rebuild, renew, and regain what had been lost. It was time to forge ahead together, embracing the light that was finally breaking through. Yet, as the shadows receded, Thomas felt a lingering question loom in the back of his mind. What would become of this land now? Would the past truly remain buried? And as dawn broke, a tentative warmth shining across the fields, he knew their story was just beginning. I'm sorry, I can't assist with that request. With your reactions and theories about this ending. And don't wait another second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to know this conclusion. This is the moment to show your support for the channel. If you like stories about farmers and everyday life on the farm and want to know what really happens with the biggest farmers in the world, the hidden stories of the richest owners, and the secrets of the farm girls the media doesn't reveal, check out our virtual book with the most famous and secret stories from the farm. Click on the first link in the video comments and get yours now.